Hello, Earthlings. I was on a road trip. I'm so glad to be back, and I wanted to lay down some foundation of my group. I wanted to break down the three R's, that we've all probably been taught in some format or another. Now, the way I've been taught about reduce, reuse, recycle is that it's in that order of priority. And I agree. Reduce should be the number one priority. But I want to kind of break this down a little bit and tell you why I actually focus on reuse, the second category, the most. But before I get there, let's talk about recycle. So I live in the United States, and we do have waste management services. So our waste is picked up from our house and taken to a landfill or recycled. And we think that we're good consumers or that we're living sustainably because we recycle, right? So the problem is that recycling, it's tricky, it's confusing, it changes constantly. So it depends on where you live, and some of the things might not be getting recycled like you think. Because I care a lot about this sustainability world, I've actually done research into this because I wanted to make sure that I was recycling correctly. And lo and behold, the more research that I do, the more confused I get. But some of the things that I learned at the beginning shocked me. For example, I used to bag all of my trash, including recycling, and I found out in my local facility that if it shows up in a plastic bag, it actually goes straight to landfill and they don't recycle it at all because they need manpower to open up those plastic bags before it goes through their conveyor belts and gets processed, and they don't have enough time to do that. I was shocked when I learned some of these things. I did more research and I found out that you can't put a soiled pizza box in your recycle bin because the grease seeped into the cardboard and it's not technically recyclable. And the more and more I go down the rabbit hole, I got more confused. I did learn helpful tips, so I don't bag my recycling at all anymore. But because I was so confused and the industry changes, and it depends if there's even a buyer for that recyclable item. If the plastic and the things we put in our recycle bin doesn't have a buyer once it's recycled, then there's not much incentive to be recycling that in the first place. So there's a lot of issues with recycling, and I don't disregard it, but what it made me do was focus more on the reuse category. Now, of course, I'm always trying to reduce. That's a given, but that can be challenging. One thing that I have just become the most empowered in doing is the reuse category. And when I decide to make a change, I look at something I'm doing in my life that maybe could be improved. For example, in my business, I package a lot of orders. And so when I buy in bulk, I bought a bunch of tape. So this is tape on my tape dispenser that I put my shipping labels on. So I'm still using the clear tape, if you can see. But when I run out of this tape, I actually already have the alternatives in place that are more sustainable. So I've got different kinds of tape, and this is a water-activated tape that gets fully recycled. So one thing that I do is I use up everything that I have, and before it runs out, I try and have the sustainable replacement ready to go. For example, to reuse what you already have. When you go to the grocery store and buy your food products, it comes in packaging. I save all the packaging that I can if possible, and I'm constantly trying to figure out how to reuse it. So my yogurt containers, I cannot find in glass or anything other than plastic. I'll save my yogurt container and put other things in it and use it for other storage devices until it breaks down, because even then the plastic will break down eventually, and I will eventually have to throw it away or recycle it and replace it with something more durable. So I work on already having a solution in place so that when what I'm currently using runs out or breaks, I already have the sustainable swap ready. Now, one reason why I focus so heavily on reuse is because it has made me more observant. It has changed my behavior on how I live. And the more and more observant I become, the more I realize that I might not be living as sustainably as I thought, and that there's ways that I could be improving. I can constantly improve. And so it's activated a skill set where I'm constantly observing the daily habits that I do and if it's wasteful. So it really makes me become aware of my waste. And because it's a priority for me to reduce my waste, because I can't rely on recycling, it really has helped me with the behavioral changes to adopt the reuse culture as best as I am able. And so these are some of the takeaways, and a lot of my videos are going to heavily focus on reuse. And when your items do break down and you need a better, more durable item, I have some suggestions I can give you. I try and get quality products that are going to last extremely long time and also are natural materials that will be recycled. So I try and stay away from plastic as much as possible because there's many different types of plastic and it may or may not be getting recycled. When I do buy quality products, I'm always looking for glass or metals like steel or aluminum, things that can be melted down and reused, and there's a buyer for that market as well. So these are some of the takeaways I want you to understand. It's just food for thought because we're all trying to live the reduce, reuse, recycle. We've probably been taught that in some format or another, but I choose to focus on reuse so much because it puts more behavioral changes. It makes me more of an observant person, and I have become empowered by doing that. And I have started to develop a skill set that has given me steps and a pathway to live more sustainably instead of just relying on recycling. So a lot of people might think that they're a sustainable consumer because they put everything in the recycle bin. And that's just a mindset that you need to break as soon as possible. We all need to step it up and take a more proactive approach on how we are living, the things we're doing in our daily life, and if we can be doing it more sustainably. And once you start to become observant of these things and you find solutions for ways to live more sustainably, you will become more in these top two categories where you're reducing and reusing and not so much relying on recycling. So the best advice I can give you, don't rely on recycling. It changes constantly. It's not the solution. It's part of what we need. We do need to recycle, but we cannot rely on it. We can't flip this and put recycling first. It needs to be last. Now, I've got a lot of videos coming up that will show you how I reduce my waste, because with the reuse, what's really important to me is just obviously reusing what I have, but also reducing my waste, because I'm just trying to throw less things away. Whether it goes in the trash or the recycle bin, my biggest goals are to just be throwing less things away in the first place. So I'm going to try and show you what I do, and food for thought, it's one step at a time. That's why I named my business Earthly Journeys, and you're following me on my earthly journey because I take one step at a time, I make one change at a time, and you can do it too. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later.